And I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Patricio Millar, who's going to facilitate our Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Miller from the NYU Dysautonomia Center. We're gonna be moving forward with the Q&A session. We've been collecting the questions that you've been submitting to a Q&A box throughout these sessions, as well as the questions that you had during the registration. We've been seeing and hearing amazing things about the genetic and gene therapies and all of the results with the ASO. So logically, there's a lot of questions about that. There's questions going from the spectrum from the research, basic science, and clinical care teams. So we're just going to start with the first question, which is something that a lot of people are concerned about, which is at this point, do we have enough information to know if there will be any limitations to which age spectrum will the ASO will be restricted to, or if it will be limited by how affected people with FD are, but the severity of their different symptoms or nerve dysfunction?
Patricio, you want me to try to tackle that?
Go ahead.
So, number one, you have to remember that there's a combination here of, I'm going to try to put it in the best possible words, between science and regulatory issues that the Food and Drug Administration has. So in order to make our pitch initially, we emphasize the need for treating very early and only young patients. Remember that our goal was to overcome the limitation that the FDA had for this special path that Sarah Glass and I think it's only Sarah mentioned that path, meaning this easy or accelerated path of the FDA was based on diseases that affected less than 10 people. So we, in order to make our pitch, after we convinced Adrian to produce the ASO, and he made the ASO, so we had the bomb that would do the thing, and NLOREM chose us also, then we had to make sure that the FDA agreed. So we emphasized the fact that people had to be very young because of those lines that I showed you. Now, all these, whoever asked this question, all these is all predicted, and we may be wrong. There may be, look, we were not expecting regrowth of peripheral nerves. Really, we were not. Several of the things that we saw, we were not expecting. Now, are these reproducible? It's only one patient. But before going to that and putting, some reality, my point is that we want to treat everybody. We would like to treat everybody, but we have to go one by one. So remember, before finishing 1 year, we already have a second patient, and we are trying to treat a third. So are there limitations? Well, there were limitations that we express. We want to apply now patient by patient with older patients and see what happens. And we believe NLOREM will also be supportive. Remember, Adrian did the drug. NLOREM put the salt, that thing of the 5 fingers. So he made the drug. NLOREM, they put the salt. The center got the drug, and we gave it to patients, right? We have to keep repeating that. We want to give it to as many patients as we can. And remember, our goal is not FDA, quote unquote, approval for the general public, because at some level, we don't care about the general public. We want to treat as many patients as we can, as fast as we can. And of course, we want the other 3 drugs to continue on development, particularly the oral one that we are working with Sue and Elisabetta. And let me emphasize that all these techniques are potentially complementary. They work in different ways, and they all correct the splicing defect. So one could envision a situation where a patient is taking a compound by mouth, right? This kinetin derivative. He's also getting an ASO and perhaps even getting gene therapy in the eye. And if Elisabetta gets her act together, CRISPR will be ready, and then we will not need any of this. There will be one and done. But Elisabetta, why are you not working on it today? So if she keeps working on it, perhaps we really get something that requires just one treatment. Look, genetic era has begun, and we are on that path. Let's hope for the best, and let's be optimistic. That's
Horacio,
all.
but who's going to pay for that? The cost of each treatment is tremendous. So how this can reach all the patients? Let's say that it's
Yeah, we
effective,
cannot-
and you can
I cannot
manage
hear
to treat 300 patients. From where you get the money? So who is going to pay for that? I mean, this is the reality. Could work fantastic, and it looks fantastic. So how we get
Well,
to patients?
I can read. I cannot hear you. I can read Okay, two things. You say who's gonna pay for this? Certainly not Israel. So let me make this clear. NLOREM is committed to provide lifetime supply for each patient. That's number one. So the only thing it's still very expensive to treat each patient. The treatment for the injections in the US is around $60K per patient for a 2-year trial. And that is because the cost of care and admissions in the US is very high.
Yeah.
So the foundation, the FDA
This is cheaper
Foundation,
here
is
in
paying
Israel,
for
if you
that.
think about that.
Now in Israel, clinical care, as you know, is free. So NLOREM provides the drug. If Israel gets her act together, which we would really hope, Miguel, we've been waiting for 15 years and we have not been able to do that. But if you guys get your act together, we spoke with Tel HaShomer, and maybe we should talk with Hadassah too and see if somebody takes the gauntlet, because NLOREM is ready to provide the drug. You just have
Fantastic.
to provide the medical care and the idea. But again, Miguel, it's up to you guys. It's up to you. And let me throw publicly this gauntlet that we still
It's
haven't
great.
been able
I'm
to
only
share
a
data
parent
with
in
you
this
guys.
case, but okay, it's something that we need to put pressure on it, but we need some data. I mean, understanding how much this costs and what is the burden on the HMO system. So probably HMO
Yeah,
could pay.
Miguel, I cannot hear anything. I don't know if the rest of the people can.
You can hear me? Yeah,
Okay.
everybody hears me.
So maybe it's our NYU connection. Okay.
So you read my lips. We can speak in Spanish if you. But it sounds great. I know. But the thing is how the cost will be managed. And how do you know what the repeated sequence of treatments for how this can
Miguel,
go?
Israel has more companies in the New York Stock Exchange than any country in the world. You have 100 patients. It's about time that you get your act together and collect some money to pay for this. Israel is not an underdeveloped country anymore. So let me be
We
very
have
Okay,
we are not.
I'm just wanted to cede the floor to Laurie Mignon from NLOREM.
I just wanted to, this is a very interesting discussion. Obviously, finances are always needed in this. I just wanted to bring it back to the question of who could be treated or if everybody can be treated. I think Horacio made a good point of, we obviously had a strategy and we needed to go in with somebody where we could still potentially see reversal of symptom or, reversal of disease and definitely improvement of disease and so forth. And so that's why we went with the patients we did. I would say that upfront, I personally don't think that there's a patient too late to be treated because we do never know what we would see, right? And so I think that is just really something we should all keep in mind. However, also, and this is really just for the ASO treatment, and so we'll do this until, you know, Adam and Elisabetta get the other treatments going that may not require LPs, but for now also, we need to be able to do an LP at the L4, L5 level, right? And so if patients have, you know, again, issues in the lower back, maybe, you know, scoliosis fusions or things like that, that could be something that prevents a treatment. And so if any patient needs to get, you know, spinal fusion, maybe keep a window open, make sure you're, you know, the surgeons know that and things like that. So I think that's what I wanted to say, because I think from a perspective of, is anybody too far progressed? I don't think any of us can tell. We don't know until we try it. And so, but to Horacio's point, we had to go in to the FDA with a patient where we could show safety, again, for far and foremost, but then also potential benefit. And so if you went with somebody maybe too progressed, that, you know, that bar would have been higher. So I just wanted to bring that point to the table.
Yeah, Dr. Kreiner.
Let me unmute. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that there's a case to be made for treating an older patient, one, just as a start sooner rather than later. And so we'll have more information. And it may be that that path is easier in Europe or in Israel at the moment than in the US. It's just something that needs to be explored, I think.
And I encourage, I don't know which buttons to touch, but we will be happy to move the needle forward if it is needed. So I'm here, and definitely something impressive. I've never seen something like that before, and needs to be explored. I would be happy to
Okay,
address
these have
the
been a
possibility
very
here.
comprehensive answers to a question that was branched off into basically a little bit of all the questions that we have. But going back to one of the things that we were mentioning earlier, and I want to bring the spotlight to Dr. Gonzalez Duarte, who's actually doing this, is if we have a patient with a spinal fusion, could that be a limitation to administering the ASO, or could be there other methods or ways to bypass this?
I think that, thank you, Patricio. Lori Mignon made a great she already answered the question. There might be some other things, not only the spine fusion, but we have to treat every patient and see which risks they will go to undergo this amazing but very, very complicated treatment.
And I would add, if somebody has a spinal fusion, we have for other programs had where the patients could talk, or neurosurgery could come in and maybe do a window, so that, I mean, depending where the fusion is, and, you know, so that there would be flow, and there, you know, and I mean, you could enter and all of that. So I think there's ways of doing it, but obviously easier to talk about that before any surgery is done than after. But even after, I think it's not a complete no-go.
Okay, that's very reassuring to hear about that. So connected to that a little bit with something that Dr. Gilbert was also bringing about is, like, right now we're administering the ASO with a lumbar puncture, but could there be, with the knowledge that we have now and that we are acquiring, would there be a pathway to administer the ASO through other ways of administration, other routes of administration? There's not a lumbar puncture.
I can take the first one, and then if anybody else, Adam,
Go
or
ahead.
anybody else wants to jump in. So currently, again, it's under this guidance of the FDA for, you know, individualized ASO development for severely debilitating or life-threatening diseases. It really covers antisense oligonucleotides of a specific chemistry using a specific route, right? So it's TUMO ASOs, and, you know, the routes are really the routes that through commercial entities have been shown to be safe. And so it's intravitreal, intrathecal, and subcutaneous. But subcutaneous doesn't work if you need to get to the brain, because ASOs don't cross the blood-brain barrier. So if you need to go to the brain, intrathecal right now is really the way. I know that for obviously Spinraza, who has been on the market for a while, people are considering, and even Biogen are doing studies of, you know, doing Ommaya reservoir. So you would have, you know, a port, and then you would be able to fill it up like that. But right now, the pharmacokinetics have been studied extremely well if you do an IT a bolus injection, through the lumbar puncture route, and the pharmacokinetics are known. And so that's why that's really the route to go right now, to go into the brain. But I don't want to say that, there wouldn't be something else in the future, but because this is already investigational, the FDA gave us a very set path to get to humans. We can't, stray away and go into a completely investigational way of giving these drugs, because we don't know the pharmacokinetics that well of other means.
May I ask something? What will determine a second dosage for the same patient? The decline of the improvement, or what will be the indications to do a second shot?
So for antisense oligos, it is repeated injections, just like Spinraza. So it's not a one and done for ASOs. It's really, you're giving it all the time. For splicing ASOs, we know that they have a slightly longer half-life than another, knockdown ASO is another mechanism. And so we know that it's about every, 4 months is what we see that works. And so it's pretty, you load it a little bit at the beginning, when you do it after 2 months, and then after 2 months, and after that, it's every 4 months.
So these patients that were shown, how many shots they got?
I think
That
the
was not
first
clear.
I think the first patient
Yeah,
got
Miguel,
4
Or
Horacio,
actually-
you're muted. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Miguel, I show the protocol and you can read it. It's an injection every 4 months.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so connecting those questions a little bit with some things that Dr. Kaufman was mentioning and Dr. Morini showed in her talk, where mouse models were being quote unquote treated with both gene editing and the PTC compound. Both this has been brought up in the talks, and people have been asking if taking part of one trial with an ASO or with a PTC compound, or in the future with the CRISPR technology, will preclude patients from receiving another therapy at the same time. Could they participate in both clinical trials at the same time? Oh, I think Dr. Kaufman, you're muted.
I guess if we have CRISPR or any of the other methods available, we'll consider it then. Usually you cannot have 2 experimental therapies at the same time, but
Really?
so all these are regulatory issues. From a science point of view, yes, they could be combined. Of course, as I was trying to mention before, if Elisabetta, instead of going on vacation so frequently, would be working on her CRISPR, we would have CRISPR already, and it would be one treatment. So look, aside from the joke, if one day CRISPR works, that you do it once and you correct the defect. It has been, I think it's only one treatment efficacious, one disease, right? Published recent, one disease. So let's hope. This is even more science fiction, but it may happen.
That's great, but the time is ticking, but for the older patients. Okay, so there needs to be done kind of in the clinics to understand what will work best for those that
Miguel,
are aging.
There is a treatment available now that is the ASO, is per patient. We are trying to get Israel. I mean, I know I'm being difficult. It's the fourth
I'm not a representative of the Israeli government.
Everybody.
I learned this for the first time.
Okay, now
tomorrow morning I will try to get people.
Okay,
I guess Bat and Alex need to be, sharing this information.
Oh, Miguel, they know. Everybody knows. They just don't answer. So let's make this very clear. Again, I'm not a politician. They don't answer.
It's clear that you are not a politician.
Okay, now you heard it. You heard it. The treatment is, we've been talking, and Lorem will help. You just need to get your act together, and let's hope we can treat the patient.
I think it's, well, I don't know if it's doable, but it should be we need to
Doable
move
if you
forward
get
with
drug
this.
together.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I mean, as part of a study, you don't want to use two experimental drugs unless that's a study design,
Definitely.
because then you are not going to be able to tell which is working, or so that's not the way to start, I think.
You don't have
Yeah,
enough
and
patients to do the
Okay, so
placebo.
moving on
and
with so we have time to answer the questions that the families and patients are asking. Another question related to research and drug development is if AI, artificial intelligence, or new technologies can help in discovering either new medications or help reusing previously known or discovered medications already. So this question can be, I think, Dr. Craner, Madam Sachs, Elisabetta, if you had experience with this kind of research approach.
And what was the question? If we can repurpose old medications?
If artificial intelligence or other technologies can help discover new medications to treat familial dysautonomia, or repurpose, reuse already discovered or available medications for clinical trials.
Yeah, in theory, yes. There's no reason why that could not be helpful. Remember, and Elisabetta can tell you, although she's very young, that kinetin, the drug we are working on, came to fruition
It
because
was an
of
FDA
a
program.
method like that, right? This was they tried like 40,000 different compounds on a chip, seeing which one would alter the splicing.
That
and
was
that's how
4,000.
kinetin appeared, right?
That is correct. I'm not an AI expert, but definitely repurposing drug is it would be is always good, because you can go like if they're already FDA approved.
But for a repurposing drug, you need to find out which outcome to fix.
And in our
it's not
in our
only
case,
one.
yeah, ELP1 splicing is quite easy.
It's the best you can. Yeah, it's the utmost. Yeah.
One of the questions that we had is related to the different talks in what we've seen with the ASO treatment, that we've seen improvement in the retinal cells and in the regrowth of the nerves in the skin, leading to improvements in balance and perception. If this can be used to know that if nerves will be growing in other parts of the body and help improve other symptoms, like, for example, swallowing.
We are looking at everything. I want to emphasize that we did modeling for many years, trying to see what a drug could do. But these were all suppositions and hypotheses. Now we are actually treating a patient. That will be the second, and we'll see, right? We will be. Coach Miguel, go ahead.
No. I have a question for you.
Can I answer that? Remember, I showed you two different clinical results, two different results. One was the biological things that we are seeing, including that renervation of the skin, and the other is the clinical significance of this. So I think that we are very early yet to see what is the repercussion of what we are seeing. Having renervation of the skin, of course, it's very, very exciting, and it makes us look forward to other results. But we need time, and we need patience.
And what about crisis? Do you manage to improve crisis?
We don't have a very good measurement for crisis. And one of the things is that people will say that they are still ongoing, the parents say, but they need a little less of the medication. I mean, the medication is more efficacious once that is given. We need to have a lot more time, a lot more patience again, and a lot of more registration, so we can see that this is really meaningful. We're treating one patient and we're all very excited, so we are very subjective to some of the
So
things.
this patient, let's say, if it was treated previously with carbidopa, he stopped the carbidopa treatment?
Family?
There is no more information that I can give you at this point about the medications. We'll have to do a lot more of analysis, Dr. Well.
Okay.
And I would just add in general, and you know, Adrian was also mentioning that before in terms of the treatments, but in general, we keep people on whatever drugs they were on, you know, for a long time before you
Okay,
start
that's
an
a good point.
investigational one, because otherwise you're changing two factors now, and then you wouldn't see what the new drug is doing. So we can't remove, especially for under this guidance, I say we would not remove something that a patient is on is keeping them safe. I mean, that's
Oh,
standard
great.
of care for
Okay.
that patient.
That's a good
And
point.
then an ASO would be added on top of that. I would also just like to give a shout out to the entire FD community and Dr. Horacio and Alejandra for all they've done also in collecting that natural history study and all that data on patients beforehand, because it is really because of that changes can be seen now, and that they can do the modeling and they can see if anything is improved. So I, you know, really feel that this is very important, that all the information that was collected for many years is also what helps in the development of, you know, such thing. And I'm not sure that other foundations would be listening to this, but if they are, this is really what is needed to be able to have that longitudinal data, because it makes it much easier at this point now, because you have the slopes that he showed, and now you can see that we're changing. So anyways, just wanted to take a second to say congrats on that work.
And just to highlight what Dr. Gonzalez was saying is that sometimes, besides all of these measurements that we're doing during all of these visits, needing less of a medication or using a medication less frequently can also be an indicator of improvement in certain areas. And at the same time, that sometimes, I mean, I think that everybody is just incredibly surprised of how rapidly we've seen all of these changes with this therapy. But that doesn't mean that we won't continue to see more changes in different domains over time.
Remember also, you know, we are very excited and incredibly happy. I hesitate a little bit, but I also want to say that this is one patient, one occasion. We have to reproduce it. We have to make certain that this is not biological variability. Remember, we are used to doing clinical trials. And in clinical trials, you need statistics and controls. Here, we are using the very peculiar statistics, meaning we are comparing one patient versus the history of others. So there are potential pitfalls and meaning we are flying with excitement. I just want to tell you that it's important to keep a little skepticism. And we oscillate every day between being elated, you know, flying, and then saying, oh, shoot, what if this is not persistent or doesn't happen to everybody, right? I just want to emphasize that the big emotional roller coaster that we have, depending the day. Some days we say this is real. Some day we say, well, it may be a biological variability. We need time. And rest assured, guys, that we are following these patients like hawks. We are measuring everything, asking all sorts of things, and we will see. We will definitely see what happens. What we need is more patients treated. You know, now we have a drug, it's possible. Patients, places where there are many patients, in the same way that Sue and Francis and Elisabetta told us to call our congressman. You call your doctors in Hadassah and in Tel HaShomer, and you tell them to get their act together.
Brilliant.
Okay, so that's all the time that we have for now. Thank you, everybody, again for joining in, for all the work and collaboration that you've done. I think that this has been an amazing year for FD.
Bravo.
And I'm going to hand off the stage now to the Executive Director of the FD Foundation, Lainey Etkin.